In a media-run state, every news cycle is an opportunity to further the regime's propaganda and reinforce the narrative. The relentless outrage manufactured by our media overlords has become increasingly absurd as their pool of viable candidates for the mandatory 2 minutes of hate continues to shrink. Leftism demands an eternal revolution, which requires enemies of the people who can be flogged publicly for the amusement of the masses. As progressives achieve near total control, the number of real threats to their power shrinks, so they must go to increasingly outrageous lengths to manufacture the kinds of enemies that they desire. The latest bit of media-manufactured outrage has come in the form of a flag flown by Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito outside of his summer home in New Jersey. The Appeal to Heaven flag features a tall New England pine tree on a white background, not exactly the most controversial imagery one could imagine. Nevertheless, progressive journalists flooded television and social media with a deluge of hysterical reports warning that fascism was now the ruling ideology of the High Court. The high priests of our secular regime quickly connected the flag to the January 6th protest and Christian nationalism, convincing millions of lonely wine ants that they are one election away from living in the Handmaid's Tale. The Supreme Court has become a very high-priority target for the left after losing its multi-generational domination of the institution a few years ago. When progressives held sway, they used the judiciary body as a battering ram, forcing through every leftist policy while laughing at the voters. While we're often fed narratives of brave souls leading protest movements that shift public opinion, the truth is that most of the left's cultural victories were won through judicial fiat, not the ballot box. For all their pearl-clutching about threats to democracy, liberals have enthusiastically overridden the will of the people using the power of the courts at every opportunity, and have only turned on the institution because they lost control of it. Conservatives often buy into the lie of popular will instead of focusing on the control of institutions that shape and control that will. But the dedicated forces of the pro-life movement generated a rare moment of political realism on the right. To the great credit of pro-life activists, they realized that control of the judiciary through the dedicated actions of an organized minority was the key to victory, and acted accordingly. Popular education and persuasion weren't abandoned, but activists realized that disciplined pressure carefully applied to key actors in the GOP could reliably produce the kind of justices that would advance their interests. While a shift in national abortion law was their main goal, the result was a Supreme Court willing to take on other leftist sacred cows, including affirmative action and the administrative state. Progressives were enthusiastic about the court's ability to override the will of the majority when popular opinion wasn't on their side, but now they've embraced mob rule. The left has invested heavily in the ability to manipulate mass democracy, and would like to see it become the only legitimate authority. The framers of the Constitution heavily restricted the influence of democracy, ensuring that it would only directly select 1/2 of 1/3 of the government. But over time, those restrictions have fallen away. Democrats have deployed mass immigration, mass media, and mass public education to ensure the rising tide of mass democracy works in their favor. Democrats are now openly attempting to remove every constitutional impediment to mob rule by attacking the disproportional representation meant to protect smaller states and institutions like the Electoral College and the Senate. Due to its domination of consensus manufacturing institutions and access to an endless stream of replacement voters through mass immigration, the left is now all in on rule by manipulated majority. The upshot? The Supreme Court, once a stalwart ally in the quest to dismantle and remake America, has now become an enemy. Though some quote-unquote conservative justices betray the right on a regular basis, the fact that the court seems willing to oppose the progressive revolution at all makes it a sinister villain in the mind of the average journalist. With the wild allegations of secret fascism leveled at Alito, many conservative commentators rush to explain the true history of a flag that had been flown by America's founders. While this reaction is understandable, even admirable, those deep roots in the American tradition are what made the flag objectionable to the left in the first place. Ultimately, progressives hate Alito because he serves as a stumbling block to the eternal revolution. They can and have manufactured a reason to call him a fascist out of thin air. But the fact that the justice holds a clear reverence for American history and identity is further justification for hatred from a progressive movement that seeks to destroy both of those things. While the appeal to heaven flag is steeped in American history, it's an unavoidable fact that our history is one forged in the fires of rebellion. The appeal to heaven comes from John Locke, the founder of classical liberalism, from whom our founding fathers drew heavily when writing the Declaration of Independence. Locke asserted that, quote, "Where the body of the people, or any single man, is deprived of their right, or is under the exercise of a power without right, and have no appeal on earth, then they have a liberty to appeal to heaven, whenever they judge the cause of sufficient moment," end quote. Thomas Jefferson had that very passage in mind when he enumerated the reasons for America's separation from the bonds tying it to the British government. It's this recognition of a liberty ordered under heaven that progressives would like to purge from our American identity. Progressives acknowledge no authority higher than themselves and seek the totalitarian power to reshape not only our nation, but mankind itself to fit their horrific vision of utopia. The media would have found an excuse to make Samuel Alito an object of derision and hate because he stands in the way of their glorious revolution. But the fact that he would appeal to heaven before appealing to the petty gods of progressivism is a crime against the total state itself. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is a great time to do so. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And when you do, leave a rating or a review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. If you'd like to go ahead and follow me on Substack or Twitter or Gab or Instagram, if you'd like to get these videos on Rumble or Odyssey, the links to do all of that are down below in the description. And of course, my new book, The Total State, is out everywhere. You can get it on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. You can order it in your local bookstore if you want to make sure to support them as well. And I've had a lot of people ask me about signed copies. I haven't figured out another way to do that yet, but you can get your copy signed if you meet me at one of the several conferences that I'll be attending this summer. The first one will be the Old Glory Club conference in Tennessee. It's coming up next week, I believe. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, I think they're sold out, but they might have a ticket or two left. You have the opportunity to do that. I'll be there. That's a great event. Happy to sign your copy if you're there, or at any of the other events. I'll let you know when those are coming up as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.